The wind cuts across the desert like a knife that's forgotten mercy. Sarah Wynne stumbles through the red dust, her boots long gone, her breath sharp and ragged. Each step leaves a ghost print on the cracked earth, each heartbeat another reminder that she's still being hunted. The sun beats down, cruel and white, turning every rock into a furnace. Somewhere behind her, the faint sound of horses carries on the wind. 2 riders, maybe 3. She doesn't look back. She can't. Her lips split from thirst, her palms raw from crawling. The edge of the canyon looks close, but the world keeps shifting, shimmering. When her knees give out, she barely feels it. The sky spins, the ground rises, and the world narrows into a sound, the slow rhythm of hooves and a voice calling her name. Not the man she loved once, but the one she's been running from. She falls hard, face against cold stone. The taste of iron fills her mouth. The wind dies, and for a heartbeat, everything goes still. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Certain. A pair of rough hands lifted her like she weighed nothing. A deep voice whispered close to her ear. "Easy now. You're safe." Sarah wants to scream, to run, but her body refuses. The stranger carries her through the mist, his scent of smoke and leather mixing with the metallic taste in her mouth. Inside a small wooden cabin, he lays her down on a fur blanket and begins washing the blood from her forehead. His touch is careful, almost tender. She blinks against the light and finally sees him clearly. The size of him makes her gasp. Broad shoulders beneath a worn vest, arms thick with age and work, a chest that still looks strong though his waist has softened. His beard is streaked with silver, his face weathered by sun and wind, and his eyes, tired yet kind, study her like a man who's seen too much loss to ever look away again. "You're a lot bigger than I expected." The words slip out before she can stop them. Her heart races. Could this man be another trap from her husband, or the first real kindness she's known in years? He smiles once, a small curl at the corner of his mouth. "Most people say that right before they start to trust me." Outside, thunder rolls across the valley, or maybe hooves again. She can't tell anymore. All she knows is that for the first time in months, she isn't running, and that simple stillness feels more dangerous than any chase. The air inside the cabin is heavy with dust and sunlight. Sarah wakes to the sound of cicadas screaming outside and the smell of wood smoke curling through the cracks. Her body aches everywhere, each breath a reminder of how close she came to dying. For a long moment she doesn't move, afraid that if she opens her eyes the nightmare will start again. Then she hears boots on the porch, slow and steady, and a deep voice beyond the door. "You're awake. Good. You scared that poor horse half to death." The door creaks open. The man from the night before steps in, his shape filling the small room. In daylight he looks even larger, broad and thick through the chest, shoulders like the frame of a door, a little heavy around the middle but solid as old oak. His beard catches the light, silver glinting against the darker hair beneath his hat. He holds a tin of water and a slice of bread in one hand. "You'll be sore for a while," he says, setting them down. "But you'll live." His tone is plain, almost gentle. Sarah pushes herself upright, wincing. The blanket falls, revealing bruises and cuts she doesn't remember getting. She takes the tin with shaking hands and drinks greedily, the water burning down her throat. "You found me out there," she murmurs. "Lucky for you, I was headed that way," he replies. "Lucky for me, you didn't bleed out before I found you." She studies him, his quiet eyes, the scar along his jaw, the way his hands move like he's careful not to break anything. "Why were you out there?" she asks. He hesitates, then pulls a folded piece of paper from his pocket and lays it on the table. The ink is fresh, the letters crude, her name scrawled across the top. Sarah's breath catches. My husband. He nods once. Offered money to anyone who'd bring you back alive. Her stomach twists. And you took it. The man meets her gaze, calm and steady. I burned it. Silence fills the cabin. A gust of wind rattles the shutters. He sits on the edge of a chair too small for him, resting his hands on his knees. I don't work for men like him anymore, he says quietly. They make you hunt people who never deserved it. His voice drops lower. I used to think every bounty was justice. Then I learned most of them were just fear with a price tag. Sarah stares at him, torn between disbelief and something else, something that feels like trust trying to breathe again. Dawn creeps slow through the valley, the kind of gray light that hides more than it shows. The mist hangs low, curling around the fence posts and the thin creek that cuts behind the cabin. Elias steps outside with his rifle slung over one shoulder. His movements are quiet, practiced. He pauses at the water's edge, studying the ground. Hoof prints. Fresh. 2 horses, maybe 3. He doesn't curse, just exhales, long and heavy, like a man used to bad news. Inside, Sarah wakes to the sound of floorboards creaking. The smell of coffee mixes with the wet scent of rain and pine. She sits up, clutching the blanket tight around her shoulders. You found something, she says as he steps back in. Elias nods once. They're close. You've got maybe a few hours, not more. He sets the rifle by the wall, pours her a tin cup of coffee. His hands are steady despite the tension in his jaw. You can rest a bit, then we move. Sarah sips the coffee. It's bitter and strong, almost harsh, but it pulls her back to life. You don't even know who I am, she says. I don't need to, he answers. You're the one being hunted. That's enough. The wind shifts outside, whistling through the gaps in the wood. Elias looks toward the door, every muscle coiled. Sarah studies him in silence. He's different in daylight, less like a stranger, more like a man carved out of earth and worry. Heavy-set but powerful, the kind who could build or break depending on what the day demanded. Why help me? She asks softly. He doesn't look at her when he answers. Because someone once helped me, when I didn't deserve it. For a moment, neither speaks. The fire crackles, small and stubborn. Then Sarah says, They won't stop until they find me. Elias nods. Then we make sure they find something else first. He checks his rifle, tightens the strap on his coat, and looks at her, really looks. Can you ride? If I have to. You'll have to. Outside, thunder rumbles again, distant but growing. The mist thickens, turning the world into a blur of white and shadow. Elias moves to the door. Pack light, he says. We'll be ghosts before the sun burns through. They leave before the sun clears the ridge. The air is cold, the mist so thick it beads on their lashes. Elias leads his horse with one hand and keeps the rifle low in the other. Sarah rides behind him, the blanket tied around her shoulders like a cloak. Every sound feels louder out here, the groan of saddles, the squelch of mud, the distant caw of a crow that doesn't like what it sees. They follow the narrow path along the creek, moving fast but quiet. Where are we going? She asks. Downhill first, he says. Then west. There's an old telegraph road. Maybe we find help. She doesn't argue. The ground slopes steep, and twice her horse slips, but Elias is there, steady, a wall of quiet strength. When he reaches out to guide her reins, she sees the scar across his forearm, white and old, like something earned long ago. They ride another mile before the first shot comes. A crack splits the morning, echoing off the rock wall to their left. Elias jerks his head. Down. They dive behind a fallen log as dust leaps from the bark. Sarah's pulse slams against her ribs. Two riders emerge through the fog, dark shapes, guns ready. Stay low, he mutters. He sights along the rifle, fires once. One of the riders tumbles, hoarse screaming, then vanishes into the mist. The second man fires wild, bullets chewing the ground near Sarah's boots. Elias moves again, calm as stone, fires a second shot. Silence follows, heavy and absolute. The only sound left is the rain starting to fall. Sarah blinks through the drizzle. Are they dead? He reloads without looking up. One's gone. The other'll wish he was. She shivers. The fear still burns hot in her throat, but beneath it something new stirs. Relief. He glances at her, voice low. You did good. You kept quiet. She nods, breath shaking. What now? Now we ride harder, he says. Because gunfire has a way of inviting company. He swings into the saddle, slower than before, the effort stiff in his shoulder. She notices the fresh cut along his arm. You're hit. I've had worse. His voice stays even, but blood darkens the sleeve. He wipes it with his bandana, then meets her eyes. You still want to live? Yes. Then keep up. The mist closes behind them as they ride, two shadows swallowed by the storm. Somewhere far off, another shot answers, the promise that this isn't over yet. They reach the ravine by noon, the sky the color of pewter and ash. The storm has passed, but the wind still carries grit that bites the eyes. Elias's horse stumbles at the bend, blood dripping down its flank, not the animal's blood, his. Sarah jumps down, grabbing the reins before he can fall. Stop, she says. You're bleeding too much. He grits his teeth, still trying to stay in the saddle. We can't stop here. You won't make it another mile. Her voice cuts sharper than she means, but it freezes him long enough for her to pull him toward a hollow beneath the cliff. The place smells of wet rock and sage. She helps him down, her hand slipping on his coat. When she peels the fabric back, the wound shows, a deep crease along the shoulder, dark with blood and dust. Bullet grazed, he mutters. Could have been worse. Could have been dead, she snaps. He almost smiles at that. You've got fight in you. You'd better hope so. She tears a strip from her skirt, pours water from her canteen over the wound, and presses the cloth hard against it. He hisses but doesn't pull away. Hold still, she says. I've done this before. You were a nurse? No. A daughter. The word hangs heavy in the air. She doesn't explain, and he doesn't ask. The sun breaks weakly through the clouds, touching the canyon wall with a dull red glow. Sarah wraps the bandage tight and ties it with shaking fingers. His breath slows, his eyes half closed. You should have left me, he murmurs. You saved me, she answers. Now shut up and let me save you back. For a while the only sound is the wind whistling through the rocks. She cleans the rifle, checks the cartridges, and glances up at the ridge. They'll track us here, she says. Elias opens one eye. Then we make it hard to find us. How? Smoke. Ash. Confusion. He gestures weakly toward the brush. If they think we're dead, they stop looking. She stares at him, realizing he's serious. You're saying we burn the place? Just enough to leave a ghost. She hesitates, then nods. The wind shifts, carrying the smell of rain and blood. Somewhere in the distance, thunder grumbles again, but softer this time, like the land is warning them. She looks at him, this broad man with lines of pain around his eyes, and wonders if fate sent him or if this is just another debt between the living and the lost. By dusk, the canyon smells of smoke. Sarah drags dry brush into a heap, her hands raw and bleeding, the skin lined with dirt. Elias leans against the rock wall, pale but alert. He watches her move, steady, determined. "That's enough," he says. She lights the pile with the last match, and a thin column of smoke curls upward, caught by the wind. "Will they see it?" she asks. "They'll see what they're meant to," he answers. A grave fire. The smoke thickens, dark and heavy, spreading across the ridge. She sprinkles ash and torn cloth near the trail, leaving footprints that vanish into dust. When she turns back, Elias has slumped forward, breathing hard. "Hey," she whispers, kneeling beside him. His skin feels cold. She presses her palm against his chest. "Stay with me." He forces a smile. "You did good. You'll tell me that when we're not dying?" He chuckles once, then winces. "Behind you," he says suddenly. The words barely leave his mouth before she hears it too. Hooves. 2 riders. Close. Voices muffled through the smoke. Sarah grabs the rifle from beside him, her pulse hammering. Elias reaches for her wrist. "Don't fire unless you have to." "I think I have to." The riders dismount, shadows through the haze. One calls out, "Rowan, we know you're here. Your girl too." Sarah's stomach tightens. She crouches low, remembering what he taught her. Slow breath, line the sight, wait. The first man steps into view. His spurs jingle. She pulls the trigger. The rifle bucks hard, throwing her shoulder back, the sound cracking like thunder through the gorge. The man drops. The second curses, fires blindly into the smoke. Sparks fly off the rocks. Elias snatches his revolver with his good hand and fires once. Silence again. Only the smoke moves now, drifting across the dead brush like ghosts. Sarah lowers the rifle, trembling. "I killed him." "You lived," Elias says. "That's the part that counts." She stares at her hands, still shaking. "I didn't want to. Nobody does the first time." He looks at her, the firelight catching the silver in his beard. "But you had to." The wind changes, carrying the scent of rain and gunpowder. Somewhere far off, a coyote howls, a long, hollow sound that feels like the end of something. Sarah wipes her face with the back of her hand and sits beside him. For a while, neither speaks. The fire burns low, the smoke fading into dusk. Then Elias says quietly, "When this is done, you'll need to choose where you go next." She looks at him, eyes fierce through the tears. "I already did." The road west winds through low hills and twisted mesquite, a scar of dirt cutting the valley in half. By morning, the smoke from the canyon is gone, swallowed by wind. Sarah rides ahead, her hair tied back with a strip of linen, her eyes fixed on the line of mountains that look farther than they are. Elias follows, stiff in the saddle, his arm bound tight and his jaw clenched. He hasn't said much since the fight. The silence between them feels heavier than before, not fear, not guilt, something closer to respect. The world smells of rain and old earth. When they crest a hill, Sarah spots smoke rising from a chimney. "There," she says. "A town?" "No," Elias answers. "May's place. A way station." The cabin below is larger than his, framed with weathered pine, a corral half broken by time. Chickens scatter as they ride in. A woman steps out onto the porch, her hair streaked white, apron dusted with flour. Her face breaks into a smile when she sees him. "Elias Rowan," she says, voice rough but warm. "Thought the desert finally kept you." He dismounts slow, his boots sinking into the mud. "Almost did." May's gaze moves to Sarah, sharp but kind. You bring trouble or just company? Bit of both, Elias says. Sarah starts to speak, but May lifts a hand. Inside first. Talk later. The place smells of coffee and sage. May pours steaming cups and eyes the bandage on Elias's shoulder. You still trying to play hero with one arm? He grunts. You still running this way station alone? Someone has to. She looks at Sarah. You hungry, girl? Starved, Sarah admits. Then sit. Eat, before you fall over. They eat in silence, the sound of the wind pressing against the walls. Finally, May says, I heard talk. A bounty in Prescott. Woman with dark hair, scar on her wrist. Sarah freezes, her spoon halfway to her mouth. Elias meets May's eyes. Jonas Pike? She nods. Owns half the mines north of here. Pays men to own the rest. Sarah's voice trembles. He forged my father's papers. Said marrying me would make it right. May snorts. Men like that don't want wives. They want deeds. Elias sets his cup down. He won't stop till he gets both. May looks at them for a long moment, then says quietly, Then you'd better rest while you still can. Trouble has a way of finding this road before nightfall. Night settles heavy around May's place. The lantern light flickers on the walls, throwing long shadows across the floorboards. Outside, coyotes yip somewhere down the wash, their cries weaving through the wind. Sarah sits by the fire, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the bandage around her wrist. The scar there feels colder tonight. May moves quietly between stove and table, humming something low and broken. Elias leans near the door, rifle across his lap. He's cleaned it twice, though it doesn't need cleaning. You'll wear the barrel smooth, May says without looking up. Keeps my hands busy, he answers. So does baking, she mutters. But one keeps you fed, the other just keeps you awake. She brings them coffee, black and thick as tar. News came through the freight line this morning, she says. Jonas Pike sent 3 men south. Said he's reclaiming property that ran away. Sarah's stomach twists. Property, she whispers. That's what he called me. May sets the mug down hard. That's what men like him call anything they can't own honest. Elias looks at the window, the reflection of firelight flickering in his eyes. He's closing the circle, he says. If he's got riders on every trail, we won't make it through the flats. You will, May says. But not by the trail. She kneels and pulls back a loose plank in the floor, revealing a small map wrapped in oilcloth. Old stage line. Half washed out, but there's water and cover. Follows the riverbed west. Elias studies it, nodding. You still got that wagon? Out back. Rusted, but the axles will hold. Sarah watches them plan, her chest tight with fear and something else, determination. You don't have to help us, she says softly. May smiles, a tired kind of kindness. Child, this land helps those who help each other. You'll learn that, or die trying. The fire pops. Outside, the horses stir, restless. Elias stands, wincing at the pull in his shoulder. We ride at first light. May hands him a pouch of dried meat. You'll need this more than I will. She grips his arm before he leaves. You're still the same man who saved folks back then. Don't forget that. His eyes flicker, the compliment landing heavier than she knows. He nods, quiet. When he and Sarah step outside, the night air hits cold and sharp. The stars hang low, clear as bullets. The road ahead is dark, but somewhere beyond it waits something like freedom. Elias looks west. We ride quiet, he says. Sarah adjusts her coat, her breath white in the dark. Quiet's all I have left. And together they vanish into the black, the sound of hooves swallowed by the wind. The trail west runs black through the sagebrush, a strip of old ash that still smells of fire years gone. Sarah rides close behind Elias, the wagon they borrowed creaking under the weight of supplies. Every few yards the road dips, swallowed by sand and memory. The air tastes like dust and smoke. She wipes her mouth, eyes burning from the wind. "How long since this place burned?" she asks. 6, maybe 7 years, he says. A supply train went up in a thunderstorm. Lightning hit the wagons. Fire took the rest. "You were here?" He nods once. Too close. They ride in silence. The sun climbs higher, pale behind thin clouds. Ash drifts from the ground when the wind changes, ghost gray against the red dirt. Sarah glances at him. The bandage on his shoulder is darker now, but he hides the pain well, jaw set, eyes scanning the horizon. "You said someone once helped you," she says finally. "Who?" Elias keeps his gaze on the road. "A man I was sent to kill." She stares. "During the war?" "After," he says, "when peace got meaner than battle ever was." His voice roughens. "He gave me food, a place to sleep. Said every man gets one chance to stop running from what he's done. And you took it?" "I tried." The wagon wheel hits a stone, lurches hard. Sarah grabs the seat. Elias steadies the reins. "You think that's what you're doing now?" she asks. "Trying to make it right?" "I think I'm trying not to fail twice." His words hang in the wind. They reach a ridge where the trail splits into 3 dry gullies. Elias stops, dismounts, kneels to the dirt. "Tracks," he says. "Fresh." Sarah joins him. Hoof prints again, wide, heavy, heading east. She feels her stomach knot. "They're circling us." "Maybe," he mutters, "or maybe they're just lost." But his hand tightens on the rifle strap. Either way, we move faster. They turn down the narrowest path, the air thick with the scent of char and sage. The landscape looks dead, but life hides in it. Lizards dart under rocks. A hawk circles high above. Sarah keeps glancing back, seeing nothing yet feeling watched. Elias notices. "Trust the silence," he says. "It tells you more than noise ever will." She nods, though her heart won't slow. Ahead, the burned trail bends toward a low valley, where a lone tree still stands, half black, half alive. Elias looks at it like an old ghost he almost recognizes. "That tree was standing the day the wagons burned," he says softly. "Maybe some things refuse to die." They stop near the half-burned tree as the sun sinks lower, a dull red coin behind the haze. The wagon creaks when Elias climbs down, his boots crunching in the ash. Sarah watches him kneel again, fingers brushing the dirt. "Tracks double back," he says. "Someone's been waiting." She grips the rifle tighter. "Waiting for us? Or for anyone unlucky enough to take this road?" He stands slow, scanning the hills. The light catches the scar on his temple, silver like the threads in his beard. "You've seen this kind of ambush before," she says. "Too many times." He wipes his hands on his coat, then adds quietly, "I used to be the one setting them." The words hang there, rough and ugly. Sarah blinks, unsure she heard right. "You were a bounty man." "After the war," he nods. "Didn't start that way. Thought I was chasing justice. Ended up hunting ghosts." His gaze drifts toward the horizon, where heat still shimmers off the sand. "There was a family once. A miner, his wife, a boy no older than 10. I was told they'd stolen from the union payroll. Rode 3 days through rain to find them. And and they hadn't stolen a thing. Just ran from debt and hunger. I came too late to stop the men who rode with me. He looks at his hands like he still feels the blood there. That's when I quit. Sarah says nothing. The wind rises, scattering gray ash into the sky like snow. She finally speaks. And now you're saving someone else's family. Trying to, he says. Maybe that's enough. She steps beside him, studying the tracks. They're close, she whispers. You can smell the horses. Yeah, he mutters. Downwind. 2, maybe 3. Not tonight, though. They'll wait for light. He looks toward the river bend, glinting faintly through the haze. We'll camp by the water. Harder to track us there. The wagon creaks again as they move. The last of the sunlight hits the hills, turning the burned ridges gold for a heartbeat before the dark swallows them. Sarah drives while he keeps watch, his rifle across his knees. You ever think the past follows us? She asks. It doesn't follow, he says. It rides beside. The words settle between them, true and heavy. Ahead, the sound of running water grows louder. They steer toward it, shadows long and thin, the road behind them closing like a scar that never really healed. They reach the river as the sun bleeds out behind the ridge. The water moves slow and copper-colored, carrying leaves and bits of ash from the hills. Elias slides off his horse and leads it to drink. Sarah kneels by the bank, cupping water in her hands. It's cold, shockingly so, and when she splashes her face, it feels like waking from a bad dream. For the first time all day, she lets herself breathe. The world smells of sage and wet stone. We'll rest here, Elias says, voice low. He loosens the saddle straps, checks the rifle once more. His movements are tired but steady. You think they'll follow the tracks? She asks. Maybe. Maybe they'll think we doubled back. He sits on a fallen log, rubbing his shoulder, wincing when the bandage pulls. Sarah pulls the pack open, finds the small tin May gave them. Dried meat, a crust of bread, 2 apples. We should eat, she says. He nods. They share the food in silence, the only sound the river's whisper. Fireflies drift between reeds, flickering like tiny promises. You ever get used to running? She asks finally. You don't, he says. You just get better at pretending it's a plan. She smiles, small and tired. You talk like a man who's done this a long time. Too long. He looks at her, the lines of his face soft in the fading light. And you? You always this stubborn? Only when I'm scared. You hide it well. She shrugs. Had to. The sky deepens into violet, stars blinking alive one by one. Elias stirs the coals with a stick, the orange glow painting his face. Tomorrow we head north, he says. Prescott's 3 days if the horses hold. And if they don't, then we walk. But we keep moving. Sarah studies him, the weight of everything he's carried settling in her chest. You don't have to do this, she says. You could leave me here. He looks up. Could, but I won't. Why? Because you remind me what it's like to try again. For a moment, neither speaks. The fire crackles, the river hums, the night closes soft around them. Sarah leans back against the saddle, her eyes heavy. Wake me if you hear anything, she murmurs. If I hear anything, he says, you'll wake yourself. And with that, the night takes them both, 2 worn souls beneath 1,000 cold stars, the river whispering promises it can't keep. Dawn comes pale and wet. Mist curls low over the river, turning everything to silver. Sarah wakes first. The fire is only a bed of glowing embers, and Elias is gone. Panic flares in her chest until she sees him by the water's edge, crouched low, studying the mud. She walks to him, careful not to startle. "What is it?" she whispers. He points to the far bank. In the thin light she sees them, hoofprints, fresh and deep, pressed into the wet sand. "They crossed here last night," he says. "Or tried to." "You think they saw the fire?" "Maybe just the smoke." He stands, rubbing his shoulder. The wound is stiff, dark against the linen wrap. "We need to move." She looks upriver, the fog thicker there, curling like ghosts through the cottonwoods. "That way?" He nods. The current hides our tracks, and the ground's softer. They pack fast. Her hands move steady now, not the shaking panic from before. Elias notices but doesn't comment. When she hoists the saddle, he takes it from her with a quiet grunt. "You've done enough." "I'm not glass," she says. He almost smiles. "Never thought you were." They cross the shallows where the water only reaches their boots. The cold bites hard, stealing breath, but it hides them. The horses snort, uneasy. On the far bank, the earth rises into a stand of juniper and stone. From there the valley spreads wide, a mix of grass, mist, and distant bluffs. Elias scans it with a hunter's eye. "Too open," he mutters. "But we've no choice." They ride single file, slow at first, then faster once the fog begins to lift. The sun edges up behind them, pale and mean. Sarah glances back. The river gleams, and for a moment she swears she sees movement in the haze. "Elias," she says quietly. "Don't look back," he answers. "If they're there, we'll know soon enough." They ride another mile before stopping under a ridge to rest the horses. Elias checks his rifle, slides a new round in with a click that sounds too loud. Sarah crouches beside him. "Do you think it ever ends?" she asks. "The running?" He looks out toward the valley. "Everything ends. The question is how much of yourself you have left when it does." The wind rises, carrying the smell of wet cedar and something sharper, metallic. Elias tilts his head, listening. "They're close," he whispers. Sarah's hand goes to the rifle. He nods once. "Stay behind the rock, keep quiet, and whatever happens, don't wait for me to tell you to shoot." The first shot splits the morning. A sharp crack that rolls across the ridge and sends the birds screaming from the trees. Elias drops low, dragging Sarah behind the rock. Stone chips burst above their heads. "2 rifles," he mutters. "Maybe more." Smoke drifts thin across the valley, the kind that comes from black powder and fresh fire. Sarah's pulse pounds so hard she can hear it in her ears. "They found us," she breathes. "Or we found them," he says. He leans out, sights down the ridge. A flash of movement, just enough. He fires. The echo slaps back from the far slope. One figure goes down. Another answers with a wild shot that punches dust near Sarah's boot. Elias reloads fast, hand practiced, despite the bad shoulder. "They'll try to flank us," he says. "Left side, through the brush." "Then we move?" "No. We stay until they're close enough to miss." He smiles faintly, a grim kind of calm. Sarah checks her rifle, the wood slick under her palms. "You remember what I told you," he says. "Breathe slow, squeeze steady." "I remember." She watches the tree line. The fog lifts in strips, revealing shapes that flicker between trees, men, maybe 3, fanning out. The air smells of sulfur and pine. Elias fires again, hitting one square. The others hit the dirt. "Now," he says, They move, quick and low, breaking cover for the next line of rocks. Bullets chase them, whining past. Sarah dives behind a stump, gasping. Elias rolls beside her, reloads, blood from his shoulder seeping through the bandage. "You're hit again," she says. "Later," he grunts. The next gunman rises too soon, and Sarah fires. The recoil jars her shoulder, but the man drops. For a second everything stops, the smoke, the noise, the shaking in her hands. "Good shot," Elias says. "Lucky," she replies. "Luck's half of living." He peers over the ridge, frowns. They're pulling back. Why? Because they're not alone. He gestures with his chin. Down the slope, more riders appear through the thinning fog. 3, maybe 4, one flying a black scarf from the saddle horn. Sarah's breath catches. Jonas's men. "Yeah," Elias says. He looks at her rifle, then at her. "You got 1 bullet left?" She nods. "Then make it count." The wind shifts, blowing smoke across their faces, the smell of powder and sweat filling the air. Elias lifts his revolver, voice steady. "Ready?" "Ready." Then we give them something to remember. And with that, they rise together into the smoke, the ridge exploding with fire and thunder. The ridge burns with noise. Gunfire echoes between the rocks, rolling down the valley like thunder trapped in stone. Elias fires until the revolver clicks empty. Sarah reloads for him, fingers slick with sweat. The smoke turns thick, blinding. Somewhere below, horses scream. "Move!" Elias shouts. They scramble down the slope, loose gravel sliding under their boots. Bullets chase them, sparking off the rock. Sarah stumbles, grabs a root, feels bark tear through her palm. Elias turns back, covers her with 2 quick shots, then grunts, a sharp, guttural sound. Blood darkens his sleeve. "Elias." "Keep going." He grabs her wrist, dragging her down toward the dry wash below. The air tastes of gunpowder and iron. When they reach the bottom, the noise fades, swallowed by the valley. He leans against a boulder, breathing hard, his face gray. "Let me see," she says. He shakes his head. "We can't stop. You'll bleed out if we don't." She presses her hand over the wound, feeling the pulse of heat through the fabric. "Damn it, Elias, let me help." He meets her eyes, something soft flickering there. "You sound like her," he murmurs. "Like who?" "My wife." The word hangs like a ghost. She freezes. "She's gone," he adds quietly. "Been gone a long time." For a moment, the wind is the only sound. Then Sarah says, "Then don't make her wait longer." He gives a faint smile, half pain, half thanks. She rips a strip from her sleeve, binds the wound tight. "You always this bossy?" he mutters. "Only when I'm scared." "Then you must be terrified." "Out of my mind," she says, voice shaking, but still here. A gun cracks from above, the bullet whining off the stone inches from her face. Elias grabs his rifle, fires once. A scream echoes, then silence. "That was the last of them," he says, though they both know it's a lie. The wind shifts, carrying new sounds, hoofbeats, slow and sure, coming from the valley mouth. Sarah peers through the haze. A figure rides out of the light, tall in the saddle, a black coat flapping behind him. Jonas Pike. Even at this distance, she feels the weight of his gaze. Elias raises the rifle, but his arm trembles. "Not yet," she whispers. "He's too far." "He'll find us," Elias says. He already did. Jonas reins his horse to a stop, looking up at the ridge where the smoke still rises. His voice carries across the valley, calm and cold. "You can run, Mrs. Wynne, but the land still belongs to me. Then he turns his horse and rides east, leaving the echo of his promise hanging in the dust. Rain comes hard and sudden. The first drops slap the dust, then the sky breaks open. Sarah and Elias reach the mouth of a shallow cave just as the storm hits. Water pours from the rocks, cold and clean, washing blood and smoke from their skin. Elias drops to one knee, pressing a hand to his side. The bandage is soaked dark again. "Sit," Sarah says. That's not a request. He sits, breath rough, shoulders heavy beneath the wet coat. The fire they try to build smokes more than it burns. She crouches close, feeding small twigs, shielding the spark with her hands until a tiny flame catches. The cave fills with the smell of wet earth and wood smoke. Outside, lightning flashes, showing the valley below in white bursts, the ridge, the dead horses, the trail of black mud leading toward the east. "He'll keep coming," Elias says quietly. Jonas doesn't quit. Then neither do we. She wrings water from her hair, her face streaked with dirt. "You said you knew him before," she adds. "How?" He looks into the fire, the light turning his eyes amber. "He wasn't always a man with money. During the war he ran supplies through New Mexico. Hired men to guard his trains. I was one of them. You worked for him. For a while. He paid well and asked no questions, until one day he asked too many." His voice hardens. "There was a raid, Union payroll, 20 wagons. He said it was Confederate thieves. It wasn't. He set it up himself. Killed his own men, blamed it on others, took the gold, and vanished." Sarah stares, the rain hammering outside. "My father died trying to stop a shipment like that," she whispers. "Said the papers proved everything." Elias nods slowly. Then he was the only one with proof left. Silence stretches. The fire crackles weakly. Sarah's hands tighten around the edge of her blanket. "That means you knew," she says. "You knew my father." "I did. And you didn't tell me." He meets her eyes, pain in every line of his face. "Because I thought it would make you hate me." She stands, trembling, half from cold, half from anger. "You rode for the man who ruined my family. And I've been trying to undo it ever since," he says. "Every mile of this road, every bullet fired, is part of that debt." The rain drowns the fire's hiss, but his words hang louder than thunder. Sarah turns away, her reflection flickering in the flame. "Then you're the reason I'm still running," she whispers. Elias doesn't answer. He just stares at the fire until the wood collapses into ash and the cave smells of smoke and truth. The rain hasn't slowed. It falls in sheets, hissing against the rocks. Sarah steps out into it, barefoot, the cold biting through her skin. The valley below is a blur of gray and lightning. She doesn't know where she's going, only that she can't breathe inside that cave anymore. The storm feels easier than his silence. Elias follows a few moments later, hat pulled low, the rain pouring down his face. "You'll catch your death," he calls, his voice rough against the wind. "I've caught worse," she snaps. She keeps walking until the ground gives way to mud. He catches her arm. "Let go," she says, twisting. "Not till you listen." "Listen to what?" "That you killed for him? That you rode under the same flag as the man who destroyed my family?" Lightning flares, white and cruel. It lights his face, tired, soaked, broken. "Yes," he says. "To all of it." She stares, rain dripping from her lashes. "Then why shouldn't I hate you?" "Because hate's what he counts on," Elias says. "Jonas wins when you burn like he does." His grip softens. "I can't change what I was. but I can choose what I do now. She shakes her head, the tears lost in the rain. And what's that? Save me to make peace with yourself? Maybe, he admits. Or maybe because I see something left worth saving. The words stop her cold. For a heartbeat, neither moves. The wind howls through the trees, the thunder rolling low like the growl of some patient beast. You think saving me makes it right? She says. No, he answers. But it makes it matter. She looks at him then, really looks. The heavy build, the scar on his jaw, the pain that sits behind his calm. A man who's done wrong and still chooses to stand in the storm. You could have lied, she says. Would have been easier. Easier's what ruined me. The rain eases, turning to a steady drizzle. He lets go of her arm. I won't ask you to forgive me, he says. Just to believe that I mean what I say. And what's that? That I won't let him take another life for mine. She studies him for a long moment. Then, quietly, you get one chance. That's all I need. They stand there until the thunder fades and the first thin streak of dawn touches the clouds. Neither speaks again. But when they walk back to the cave, side by side, it's clear something fragile has shifted, the beginning of a trust born not from peace, but from pain shared beneath the rain. Morning breaks slow and gray. The rain has stopped, leaving the valley wrapped in mist. Sarah kneels by the dead fire, stirring the ashes with a stick. The cave smells of wet stone and smoke. Elias stands near the entrance, scanning the ridge through his field glass. Nothing moves out there but the fog. We should go soon, he says. The river'll flood by noon. She nods, but something glints in the ashes, metal, thin as a coin. She brushes away soot and finds a small tin box, blackened by heat but still shut tight. Elias, she calls. He turns. Wasn't here before. She pries it open with her knife. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lies a folded piece of parchment and a silver locket dark with tarnish. The paper crackles when she unfolds it. It's a deed, she whispers. My father's handwriting. He kneels beside her, reading the faded lines. Wind claim number 3, Dust Creek Vein. Below, another name scrawled in ink darker and newer. Jonas Pike. He forged it, Elias says, voice tight. Copied your father's seal. That's how he took the mine. She turns the paper over. Another scrap is tucked behind it, a rough map drawn in pencil, leading from Dust Creek to the ridge above Prescott. At the corner, a mark shaped like a crescent. My father always marked his hiding spots, she murmurs. Said the moon kept secrets. Elias studies the curve, nodding. There's an old miner's trail fits that line. If this deed is proof, the rest of the papers are buried there. He glances at her. Enough to ruin Jonas for good. Her pulse quickens. Then that's where we go. He folds the map carefully, slipping it into his coat. You understand what happens when we find it, he says. He'll come after us harder. No deals, no mercy. He already took everything, she answers. There's nothing left for him to break. Outside, the mist begins to thin. The horses shift, restless. Elias tightens his belt, holsters his revolver. Then we ride north. Sarah looks once more at the locket. Inside, beneath the grime, she finds a faded photograph, a man and a little girl, both smiling in sunlight. Her throat tightens. He buried this here for me. He meant for you to find it, Elias says. And maybe for me to make sure you did. The words hang between them, heavy but true. She closes the locket, tucks it against her heart. Then let's finish what he started. The mist lifts, revealing the narrow path along the river bend, winding north toward the unknown. Elias mounts first, then offers her his hand. She takes it without hesitation. The trail north twists through old mining ground, a wasteland of rusted rails and collapsed shafts. The smell of sulfur still lingers, sharp and bitter. Sarah rides close to Elias, her eyes tracing the map's faint lines. "If the crescent mark's right," she says, "we're half a day from the ridge." "If the bridge still stands," he answers. This road hasn't seen a wagon in years. The wind moans through broken timbers, a sound like whispers. Somewhere, metal creaks under its own weight. Sarah spots a half-buried sign, the letters nearly gone, "Win Vein No." 3. Her chest tightens. This was ours. Elias nods, scanning the slope. Then, Jonas knows it too. They pass an overturned cart, its wheels snapped, its frame clawed by rust. He dismounts, crouches low. "Tracks," he mutters. "Fresh ones." She leans down. "Horses?" "4, maybe 5. He stands, jaw hard. "They're ahead of us." "You think it's him?" "His men. He wouldn't come here himself. Not yet." He motions for silence and starts leading his horse through the narrow gully. The walls rise steep and close, streaked black with soot. Every sound feels too loud, the crunch of gravel, the snort of a horse, the rattle of a loose stone tumbling away. They reach a bend where the trail splits. Elias studies both paths. "Which?" Sarah asks. "Left keeps us low," he says. "Right gives us height." "High ground then," she says. "At least we'll see them coming." He smiles faintly. "You're learning." They lead the horses up the slope. From the ridgetop, the valley spreads below, a graveyard of old shafts and twisted rails. Then movement catches her eye. Riders. 3 of them, cutting through the lower trail. "They're tracking us," she says. "Fast." "We'll draw them uphill," Elias says. "Keep close." They spur the horses, hooves drumming against stone. Shouts rise behind them, shots echo off the walls. A bullet grazes a rock near Sarah's boot, spraying dust. She ducks low, the map clenched in her hand. Elias fires back, one shot, then another. One rider falls, the others scatter, regrouping. They race toward the ridge crest where the path narrows. "It ends here," she shouts. "No," Elias says. "It hides here." He veers left toward a crack in the rock, barely wide enough for the horses. They slip inside as bullets ring behind them. The passage opens into a hollow, hidden by brush and shadow. Silence crashes down. Only their breathing fills the air. Sarah's heart hammers. "That map better be right," she says. Elias looks out through the slit of stone at the valley below. It is. Because we just rode through the place he never wanted us to find. The hollow smells of earth and old secrets. Dust hangs in the beam of light that slips through a crack above them. Sarah ties the horses near the wall and follows Elias deeper inside. The air cools, the stone damp under her palms. "You sure this is it?" She whispers. "I'm sure," he says. "Look." The rock ahead glows faintly where the light touches it. A carving, shallow but clear, shaped like a crescent moon. Her breath catches. "My father's mark." Elias brushes away dirt, tracing the curve with his finger. He built this pocket himself. Miners used to dig side chambers for ore, then seal them after. Smart man. He hid proof instead of gold, she murmurs. They search the floor, moving stones one by one. Her fingers hit something solid, metal wrapped in canvas, buried under years of dust. Together they lift it out. a small chest, rusted but intact. Elias forces the latch with his knife. Inside, bundles of papers tied with faded string. The ink has bled, but the names are still legible. Transactions, signatures, all tied to Jonas Pike. These are payroll lists, Elias says. Shipments. Even the fake seals. Sarah pulls one sheet free. And here, she whispers, his confession. A letter from my father. She reads aloud, her voice trembling. If this reaches you, it means I failed to stop him. Trust no one who served under his name. One of them knows, one still carries guilt enough to do right. She stops, eyes flicking to him. He meant you. Elias lowers his head. I was there when it happened. Your father tried to stop the raid. I didn't believe him. I helped Jonas bury the truth. And now? She asks. Now I help dig it up. The words come out rough, certain. She looks at the papers again, the weight of them in her hands like something alive. This could hang him. If we live long enough to show it, he says. Outside, thunder rumbles again, though the sky above the crack shows clear blue. That sound isn't weather, Elias mutters. They rush to the opening. Down in the valley, riders swarm, the glint of rifles catching light. Dust clouds rise. He's here, Sarah whispers. Elias shoulders his gun, his face set hard. Then we finish this. She tucks the papers inside her coat, cinches the buttons. How many? Enough, he says. But not enough to take what's his anymore. The echo of hooves grows louder, climbing toward them. Elias looks once at her, the faintest smile breaking through the grim. Your father was right, he says. The moon does keep secrets. The sound of hooves breaks against the cliffs like drums. Dust pours through the gap in the rocks before the men do. Elias pushes Sarah behind a stone outcrop, rifle ready. You stay low, he says. You said that last time, she whispers. And you listened, he answers. The first rider bursts through the gap, gun drawn. Elias fires once. The man falls, tumbling into the dust. More follow. The cave fills with smoke and echoes. Sarah covers her ears, the noise pounding through her chest. She crawls toward the chest, clutching the bundle of papers close. Elias! She shouts. He ducks behind a boulder as bullets chew the wall above him. Go! I'm not leaving you. You don't have to, says another voice. Cold. Confident. Jonas Pike steps through the dust, black coat gleaming with rain and grit. His revolver gleams silver in the half-light. So this is where the great Elias Rowan decided to rot. Elias steadies his aim. You still talk too much, Jonas. And you still choose the losing side. Jonas lifts his gun. Step away from the girl. She's not yours to claim, Elias growls. She never was. Oh, but she was bought. And bought means owned. The shot comes fast. Elias fires at the same time. Both bullets meet air. The sound shakes the cave. Sarah grabs the fallen lantern, throws it. Oil splashes. Fire blooms along the wall. Jonas curses, ducking back. Elias moves, fast despite the blood on his coat, tackling him. The two crash to the floor, fists and fury. The revolver slides, clattering near Sarah's feet. Jonas snarls, shoving Elias off. He draws a knife, lunges. Elias blocks with his arm, the blade slicing deep. Enough! Sarah yells. She lifts the gun, hands shaking. Jonas freezes, laughing low. You won't, he says. You're your father's daughter. He couldn't shoot either. She steadies the barrel. He didn't have to. I'm not him. The shot cracks like lightning. Jonas staggers back, hand clutching his chest, eyes wide with shock. He falls hard, the echo rolling down the tunnel until it's swallowed by the wind. Smoke fills the air, orange and gray. Sarah drops the gun, chest heaving. Elias crawls to her side, bleeding but alive. "You did what you had to," he says. "I did what he left me to finish." She reaches for his hand. "We need to get out." "Yeah," he says, voice thin. They limp toward the opening. Behind them, the fire spreads, swallowing the paper's hiding place but not the proof Sarah carries against her heart. Outside, the night wind hits cold, sharp, alive. Elias looks back once at the cave, the crescent glow fading behind flame. "Your father can rest now," he says. "And so can I." They ride at dawn. Smoke still hangs low over the valley, a thin gray ghost that clings to their clothes. The air smells of ash and rain. Sarah keeps one hand on the saddlebag pressed against her side, the proof, dry and safe. Elias rides beside her, pale beneath the brim of his hat. The bandage at his arm has turned rusty red, but he doesn't slow. "You should rest," she says. "If I stop, I won't start again," he answers. The road stretches long between the hills, carved by wagon wheels long gone. Grass pushes through cracks in the clay, the land already trying to heal. 3 days to Prescott, he mutters. "If the horses hold." "They will," she says. "They have to." For hours they ride in silence. The sky clears into soft blue, the kind that looks too gentle for everything they've done. Birds return to the river. Somewhere behind them, the fire at the Crescent Cave still burns. "He's really gone," she says at last. "Jonas?" He nods. "Buried where greed put him. Deep." She looks down at her hands. "I thought I'd feel free." "You will," he says. "Just takes longer than folks think." She smiles faintly. "That sound like experience. That sound like old bones talking." He coughs, a low, rough sound. She glances at him. "You're bleeding again." "Not enough to matter." "It matters to me." He doesn't answer, just nudges his horse forward. The sun climbs higher, painting the rocks gold. Around noon they reach a ridge where the land opens wide, the first glimpse of the Prescott Plain in the distance. Elias reins in, breathing hard. "There," he says. Marshall's office is past that ridge. Sarah shades her eyes. Feels farther than it looks. Most things worth doing are. They rest under a cottonwood, sharing the last of May's dried meat. The quiet feels heavier than the gunfire ever did. "What'll you do after?" she asks. "After the marshal sees this?" He thinks a moment. "Maybe fix the roof on that old cabin. Maybe just sit still for a while." "You think you can?" "No," he says, smiling faintly. "But I'd like to try." She looks toward the horizon, the wind tugging at her hair. "You think there's a place for people like us?" "There is," he says. "We just have to build it." The words hang soft but strong. When they mount again, the sun sits high, their shadows riding long before them, 2 lines crossing the desert toward whatever peace the West still owes them. Prescott rises from the plain like a promise made of wood and dust. Boardwalks, hitch rails, a bell over the courthouse roof. Elias slows as they enter the main street, sweat dark on the horses, his face gone gray. People look up, then look away, the way towns do when trouble rides in but doesn't ask for help. "Marshall's office," he says, nodding toward a brick building with a star painted on the door. Inside it smells of ink and leather. A tall man with iron hair looks up from a ledger. His badge catches the light. "Rowan," he says, voice dry. Figured I'd see you again before the earth did. Elias tips his hat. Denton. Sarah steps forward, pulling the parcel from her coat. We need you to see this. The marshal studies her face, then the blood on Elias's sleeve, then the bundle. He unties the string, lays the pages flat. Payroll lists. Deeds. Letters. The room goes very quiet. Denton reads fast, eyes narrowing, jaw working. Jonas Pike, he says at last. Been a stone in this town's boot for a decade. He taps a seal, frowns. You sure of these? As sure as graves, Elias says. Denton looks up. And Pike? Won't be troubling you, Elias answers. The canyon kept him. A beat, then the marshal nods, slow. He gathers the papers, slides them into a locked drawer, and turns the key. I'll convene Judge Redding by sundown, he says. We'll post notice, seize what's left of Pike's holdings, send riders to fetch his partners. Your father's claim goes back where it belongs, Miss Wynne. Sarah's throat tightens. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Denton says. Truth's loud. It draws flies. He eyes Elias. You look like you're about to fall over. Elias tries a smile. Been worse. Doctor's 2 doors down, the marshal says. Go before you decorate my floor. Outside, the town feels brighter, like someone opened a window. Sarah walks beside him to the doctor's porch. He sits heavy on the steps, breathing slow, eyes half shut. You done good, she says. You finished it? We finished it, he answers. The doctor appears, grumbles, ushers him inside. An hour later, Elias steps back into the sun with a fresh bandage and a bottle that smells like fire. He hands it to her. Medicine, he says. She laughs once, the sound light and surprised. They cross to the livery and water the horses. Afternoon wind lifts dust along Whiskey Row, swings a loose sign, carries the smell of bread from somewhere down the street. What now? She asks. He looks north, where the hills lean against the sky. I reckon I owe a roof its shingles. She nods toward the horizon. And I owe a creek its name. They stand there a long moment, not speaking. Then she offers her hand. He takes it, big and careful. Stay for a while, she says. Just to see if sitting still suits you. He nods, eyes soft. Might be I could learn. The bell over the courthouse rings once, clear and clean. Somewhere a door opens. Somewhere a ledger closes. And on a quiet street at the edge of the West, 2 worn hearts decide that the long road home might be the one they ride together. The morning they leave Prescott, the sky breaks wide open. Gold light spills across the ridge, catching every blade of grass like a spark. The town fades behind them, a line of roofs and smoke. Ahead, the land stretches quiet and endless. Sarah rides beside Elias, her hair loose in the wind. The horses move slow, their hooves soft against the road. No chasing this time, no gunfire, no shadows in the rear view of the sun. Just the sound of leather creaking and the river keeping pace beside them. Feels strange, she says. Riding without running. Takes getting used to, Elias says. Peace always does. She glances at him. His coat is patched, his beard trimmed, the silver brighter now. He looks older and lighter at once, like the desert finally forgave him. They stop near a bluff overlooking Dust Creek. The valley below lies green again, grasses high, the burned ridges already softened by new growth. The old mine road winds through like a scar half-healed. That's it, she whispers. My father's land. Elias studies the plain, nodding slow. It's still standing. It's waiting, she says. They ride down, the smell of sage thick in the air. The cabin at the bend has no roof, just walls grayed by sun and time. She dismounts, running a hand along the doorway. "I used to sit here," she says softly. "Watch him fix the fence. He'd hum some old song and say every board needed a name so the house wouldn't forget who built it." Elias smiles faintly. He sounds like a man who loved the sound of work. He did. She turns, the wind lifting her hair. "Think it can be home again?" "If you want it to be." She looks up at him, her eyes steady. "And you?" He takes off his hat, runs a hand through his hair. "I've been a lot of things. Soldier, drifter, fool, never been a builder." "Then maybe it's time to learn." He chuckles low, a sound that fits the place. "Guess I can hold a hammer better than a rifle these days." She grins. "I'll hold the other end." Together, they walk the length of the cabin, planning aloud. Windows here, the stove there, a corral by the old cottonwood. The sun climbs higher, washing them both in light. For the first time, the land feels alive again, breathing with them instead of against them. Elias leans on the rail, looking at her through the dust motes dancing in the air. "Your father'd be proud," he says. "He'd be grateful," she answers. "You kept your promise." He nods, quiet, his gaze drifting toward the horizon where the wind moves the grass in long, soft waves. "Funny thing," he murmurs. "I think it finally feels like home to me too." By the second morning, the hammer has rhythm. The old cabin takes shape again, board by board, nail by nail. The sound echoes through the valley like a heartbeat. Sarah holds the wood steady while Elias drives each strike clean. His hands are raw, his shoulder bound tight, but he doesn't stop. "You work like a man chasing time," she teases. "Maybe I am," he says, smiling. "Can't let it get too far ahead." When the roof beam settles, he steps back, breath heavy. The wind shifts, carrying the smell of rain from far off. A storm's brewing somewhere beyond the ridge, but here the sun burns bright and steady. She wipes sweat from her brow, laughing softly. "If my father could see this, he'd probably say we're doing it wrong. Then he'd grab a hammer and show us how," Elias replies. They share a quiet smile. Hours pass. The walls rise, the door swings, the floor smooths under their boots. By evening, the place looks almost whole again. Sarah lights a lantern, hangs it by the window. The glow spills out over the porch, golden and calm. Elias sits on the step, rolling a cigarette he never lights. "You ever think peace feels too quiet?" he asks. "Sometimes," she says. "But maybe that's because we've forgotten what quiet's supposed to sound like." He nods, eyes on the hills. "You could sell this land now, start over somewhere new." She shakes her head. "No, I think I'd rather start over right here." He looks at her, the question plain but unspoken. She meets his gaze, steady and warm. "You said you were learning to build," she says. "Stay. Help me finish the rest." He chuckles low, the sound rough and true. "If you're asking." "I am." The wind rustles the cottonwoods, making them whisper like an old hymn. The lantern flame flickers, catching in her hair. He watches her, the way dusk softens her face, and something inside him eases for the first time in years. "Guess we made it," he says. "Guess we did," she answers. A pause, then she adds, "A life's a good start." He smiles. "Yeah, it is." They sit until the stars come out, the cabin glowing faint behind them, the sound of the creek whispering below. The war, the dust, the chase, all of it feels like another lifetime carried off on the wind. Somewhere a coyote calls, long and lonesome, but the night holds no fear anymore. Sarah leans her head on his shoulder. He lets out a breath, slow and easy. "Tomorrow," she says softly, "we finish the roof." "Tomorrow," he agrees. Above them the sky stretches endless and forgiving, and the first light of dawn begins to spill over Dust Creek, turning the valley gold again, as if the land itself has decided to start over with them. Prescott wakes early the morning of the hearing. Bells ring from the courthouse tower, sharp against the pale sky. The streets fill with quiet faces, miners, ranchers, widows, all drawn by the promise of justice that has taken too long to come. Inside, the air smells of pine and dust. Sarah sits straight on the wooden bench, her hands clasped tight in her lap. Across the room, Jonas Pike stands in irons, his coat gone, his pride stripped down to sweat and silence. The wound on his chest has healed wrong, the scar showing like a brand of his own making. The judge reads slow, his voice echoing against the walls. Forgery, fraud, murder by order. The words hang heavy. Every paper Sarah and Elias carried from the cave now lies stacked before the bench. The same moon that once hid the truth now shines on it. Elias sits behind her, arm bound, eyes steady. He looks smaller under the coat, older maybe, but there's peace in the way he breathes. Marshal Denton stands near the door, hat in hand, badge gleaming dull in the morning light. You've had your say, Pike, the judge says. Any last words before sentence is passed? Jonas lifts his head. His voice is low, bitter. You think the world changes because you hang one man? There's always another waiting. Sarah rises before she means to. Then we'll face them too, she says. The room stills. Even the judge pauses. Jonas's glare slides to her, but the fight's gone from his eyes. You sound like him, he mutters. Like your father. He had better company, she replies. The gavel falls. The verdict lands. Guilty on all counts. The crowd exhales, some clapping, some weeping. Jonas stands stiff as the irons drag him away. He doesn't look back. Outside, sunlight floods the steps. Sarah blinks against it, breathing air that finally tastes clean. Elias joins her, moving slow but sure. It's done, she says. Almost, he answers. Marshal Denton steps forward, holding a leather pouch. The reward. $10,000, government issue. Elias shakes his head. Keep it. Denton frowns. You earned it. Maybe. But justice ain't gold. The marshal studies him, then nods once. Fair enough. He tips his hat to Sarah. You take care of that land. Folks remember honest names longer than rich ones. I'll try, she says. The marshal walks away, boots heavy on the wood. For a long while they just stand there, watching the town move again. Children laugh, wagons rattle, the church bell rings noon. Sarah turns to Elias. Feels strange, she says. All this noise after so much silence. That's life, he says. It keeps going whether we're ready or not. She smiles faintly. You think he meant what he said? That there'll always be another? Maybe, Elias says. But not today. He looks toward the hills beyond the town, where the road bends back toward Dust Creek. Let's go home. She nods, wiping the last of the courthouse dust from her skirt. The two of them step down the stairs together, into sunlight bright enough to burn the past away. The town feels different by afternoon. The air lighter, the shadows less mean. Word of the verdict travels faster than the dust. By sundown, everyone in Prescott knows Jonas Pike won't see another sunrise. Outside the marshal's office, a small crowd gathers as Deputy Crow steps out. His badge already gone from his chest, his eyes sunken like a man who finally saw himself too clearly. Marshal Denton follows, voice low but firm. You knew, Crow. You let him bleed this territory for years. Crow swallows, his hat twisting in his hands. Didn't think it'd end this way. No one ever does, Denton says. He points down the road. You ride east. Don't come back. Crow nods once, then walks into the setting sun, alone. The street quiets after. Sarah and Elias watch from across the way. That him? she asks. Yeah, Elias says. Used to be a good man once. So did a lot of them. He looks at her, the light soft in his eyes. Not all of them stayed that way. They walk toward the stables, the sky burning gold over the roofs. The horses are ready, fed and brushed, like they know it's time to go. Elias checks the saddle straps, slow and deliberate. You sure you want to leave tonight? She asks. No reason to stay, he says. The road's cooler after dark. She nods, climbing onto her horse. The town watches them go, quiet respect in the eyes of those who know what was lost and what was earned. They ride through the main street as the lamps flicker to life, one by one. Somewhere a fiddle plays behind saloon doors, a tune old as the dust itself. At the edge of town, Elias looks back once. The courthouse roof catches the last of the sun, the bell glinting like a promise. You ever wonder if justice really changes anything? Sarah asks. Maybe not the world, he says. But it changes the people who try. The road opens ahead, wide and red under the dying light. Wind picks up, carrying the faint smell of mesquite and rain. Sarah pulls her coat tighter. You think anyone will remember us? Doesn't matter, Elias says. Long as we remember who we became. They ride in silence for miles, the horizon bleeding into dusk. The first stars rise, sharp and cold. He hums under his breath, a tune she's never heard but somehow knows. That song, she says. My father used to whistle it. He taught it to me, Elias says softly. Long before any of this. She smiles, tears stinging but warm. Then keep playing. The melody drifts between them, thin but steady, like a heartbeat finding its way back. When they reach the ridge, the valley opens wide and familiar, Dust Creek waiting below, silver in the moonlight. Elias stops, tipping his hat back. Tomorrow, he says, we start again. Sarah looks at him, the man who found her in the dust and carried her through fire and storm. Tomorrow, she echoes. Behind them, the last bell of Prescott rings once, marking an end. Ahead, the night waits quiet, and the road home gleams like the first line of a new story. Dust Creek greets them with silence, the kind that hums instead of echoes. Morning dew clings to the grass, the air smelling of clay and new rain. The valley hasn't forgotten them. The charred edges from the fire months ago are green again, soft with wildflowers. The cabin still stands by the bend, roof sagging, door off one hinge, but alive somehow. Elias reins in, eyes scanning the fields. Looks smaller, he says. Or maybe we just got bigger, Sarah answers. She dismounts, boots sinking into damp earth. The creek murmurs beside them, same as the night she first found shelter there. She kneels, touches the water. Cold. Clear. Real. Still runs clean, she says. After everything. Elias walks the perimeter, running a hand along the half-burned beams. Wood's strong. We can patch the rest. We will, she says. I'm not running anymore. He smiles faintly. Didn't figure you were. The horses graze while they start to clear debris, shards of glass, old nails, a rusted pan. The work is slow, but steady. Elias sets the posts while Sarah gathers stone for the hearth. When the sun climbs high, they rest under the cottonwood. Its branches rattle soft in the wind. You ever think we'd make it back here? She asks. Not till I saw the sky over Prescott turn gold, he says. Then I knew it wasn't over. Feels strange building something that isn't meant to burn. That's how you know it's worth doing. She laughs quietly. You sound like my father. He had more sense than I did. He forgave faster too. Elias looks down, the shadow of a smile fading slow. Maybe that's something I can still learn. They work till dusk, sweat mixing with sawdust, the smell of cut wood sweet and familiar. When the roof beam finally settles, Sarah steps back, breathless. "It's standing," she says. "For now. That's more than we had before." The sun dips low, painting the walls orange. Elias lights the first lantern, hangs it by the doorframe. The glow spills across the floor, warm and alive. "Looks better already," she says. "Smells like hope," he adds. They eat by the creek, bread and beans and the last of Denton's jerky. Fireflies drift above the water. "You ever think about the people we lost?" she asks. "Every day," he says. "But I stopped letting them own me." She nods. Maybe peace isn't about forgetting. Maybe it's about remembering without bleeding. "That sounds right," he says. They sit quiet after that, listening to the creek's soft song. The stars bloom one by one, slow and sure. Sarah leans back against the post. "Tomorrow we start the roof," she says. "And after that?" "Whatever comes next," he says. "Long as it's honest." The night folds around them gentle and wide. For the first time, neither of them dreams of running. Dawn breaks slow, spilling pale gold across the valley. The roof is done. The hammer lies quiet on the porch, the air heavy with wood smoke and river mist. Sarah stands by the doorway, sleeves rolled up, hair loose, watching the light creep across the floorboards. Elias steps out from behind the cabin, wiping dust from his hands. "Never thought I'd see it finished," he says. "It's not finished," she answers. "Just begun." He nods, smiling faintly. They walk together toward the creek. The grass glitters with dew, every drop a tiny world reflecting the sky. The water moves slow and clean over smooth stones. Sarah kneels, cupping her hands, drinking deep. "Still cold," she says. "Still alive," Elias adds. He sits beside her, boots half in the mud, watching sunlight dance on the ripples. The scars on his arm look softer now, like they've learned to rest. "You ever wonder what comes next?" she asks. "Every morning," he says. "But I stopped trying to guess. That scares me." "That's how you know it's real." A long silence settles. The wind brushes the grass. A hawk cries somewhere beyond the ridge. "We could plant here," she says. "Corn, maybe wheat." "We could," he says. "I can fix the well. Build a corral down by the bend." She nods, a smile growing slow. "Then we'd have to name it." "The house?" "No, the land." He looks toward the horizon, eyes warm. "Dust Creek's already taken. Then we'll call it Redemption." "Too heavy," he says. "Home fits better." She laughs softly. "Home it is." They walk back as the sun climbs, the cabin glowing like honey in the light. Elias leans against the doorframe, the world opening behind him. "You ever think freedom meant leaving?" he asks. "I used to," she says. "But now I think freedom wasn't about leaving. It was about choosing where to stand when the world tried to break you." He looks at her, and something deep in his chest finally settles. Then we're standing in the right place. She reaches for his hand, fingers rough against rough. "Stay a while," she says. "See if it holds." "It will," he says, and for once there's no doubt in his voice. They sit on the porch as the day unfolds, horses grazing, wind shifting through the cottonwoods, the creek humming low. A single bluebird lands on the fence post, singing like it's been waiting for them all along. Sarah leans her head on his shoulder, eyes half closed. "You think we earned this?" "Maybe not," he says. "But we found it anyway." The sun warms their faces, gold and soft. The world feels new, even if it's made from broken pieces. Somewhere far away, a bell rings from the old town, echoing faint but kind. And here, in a quiet valley by the water, two weary souls finally let the silence mean peace. In the quiet of Dust Creek, two souls found what the world had stolen: peace, not promised, but earned. Their story wasn't about winning or losing. It was about standing, even when everything around tried to make them kneel. Elias learned that redemption doesn't come with gold or verdicts. It comes in small, steady choices, the ones that build instead of burn. And Sarah, after all the running, discovered that freedom isn't escape. It's the courage to stay, to plant roots where the pain once lived, and to let the light in again. Maybe that's something for all of us to remember. We carry scars, we lose, we start again. But somewhere in the dust and the dawn, there's always a place waiting to become home, if we dare to stop running long enough to see it. If this story found a quiet corner in your heart, take a breath with us. Leave a comment below and tell us, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it where you are? And if you felt something real in this journey, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Because every story like this keeps the fire of the West alive, one heart, one dawn, one Dust Creek at a time.